Hey guys, this is Undercover Dudes all the way from Down Under, and today I'm going to be showing you guys the best settings in Krunker.io. You guys have been asking for this video for such a long time, and today I'm going to show you every single setting in Krunker.io, how to make your game look really nice and run really smooth. But with that said, if you're excited for this video, make sure to go and smash that like button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. 90% of the people watching this video right now, so probably you, haven't gone and subscribed to the channel. So if you want to see more Krunker.io content, make sure to go and smash that subscribe button so you can see them as soon as they come out. Alright, so with that said, let's get straight into it and I'll show you guys my settings. Now, to get to the settings menu, you need to press the escape button, and then in the bottom left hand corner, press the settings button. Now, as you can see, there is a ton of settings to go and talk about today, and we're going to be breaking them down one by one. And I'll be showing you my settings, but also showing you some alternatives, some different type of, different settings that you may like if you have a not so good PC, and if you want to go and make your game look a little bit different. Alright guys, so with that said, let's get straight into it, starting off with the performance section. And this is really important because it affects how much FPS you get in game. Basically, the higher your FPS number, the more frames you're going to be running at, the smoother your gameplay experience. So you want that number to be as high as possible. As you can see, resolution, first thing to go and talk about. I currently have it on 1. That means I'm going to be rendering at my native resolution, which is 1920 by 1080 for my monitor, and that will be the same for a lot of you guys out there. If you go and drag this slider all the way to 2, that will render at double 1920 by 1080. And the game does look a little bit better, but it isn't worth it. So if you have a decent PC, keep it on 1. But what about if you have a Chromebook or a not so good laptop? What do you go and do then? Well, go and drag it down to maybe 0.4, 0.6, play around with it. If you put it to 0.1, as you can see, the game just becomes a, blocky pixelated mess. But if you put it on 0.4, that means you'll be running at a higher frames per second. The game might not look as good, but that means you'll get good FPS, and so you'll be able to go and slide hop around the map really easily, and it won't be all laggy. So for Chromebook users, 0.4 is probably a good one to go at. Now for frame cap, this is basically if you want to limit your frame per second for some reason. For me, I keep it on 0, which means it's disabled. Aspect ratio, I wouldn't go and mess around with that. That's if you want to go and make your game look a little bit fatter or a little bit thinner, but I wouldn't go and mess around with it. So the next section is where it says low spec, particles, shadows, ambient shading. What do I turn on? What do I turn off? Basically, as you can see, I only have 2 things on: bullet trails and sniper flap. Sniper flap is pretty self-explanatory. It makes my gun look a little bit cooler. It has, a flap on my scope of my sniper, but you can go and turn that off if you want. I do have bullet trails on though, and that's pretty important because as you can see with the sniper, there's a little bit of a bullet trail that you guys can go and see, and someone shooting behind you, you can go and track them and see where they are. So it's a cool feature to go and turn on. But everything else I have turned off. Shading, shadows, particles, I just want my game to run as high of FPS as possible. And people saying, oh, why didn't you go and turn shadows on? Well, here's an example. As you can see here, no shadows currently, but if I go to settings, I put it on. As you can see, it's got some shadows here, and potentially an enemy could sit here. And I know there's, red name tags above enemies and stuff like that, but I just want the map to be as bright as possible so I can go and find my enemy. So I personally have shadows off, but this is up to personal preference. Now scrolling down into the interface section right here, UI scale, this is basically, as you can see, the scale of your user interface. I like having it on 1, but you guys can change it as you like. And show UI, this is pretty cool. If I go and turn it off, we're in game. As you can see, looks really cinematic. There's nothing on your screen basically besides your crosshair and your gun. So if you want to make some cool montages, this is a cool setting to use. Scrolling down, dynamic HP bars. This is basically when you shoot someone, it goes down dynamically rather than just being just automatically dropping. There is a little bit of a transition, so that looks pretty cool. I personally have show damage turned off. I know a lot of people like having it on. I personally find it distracting, so for me, all these settings are irrelevant, so you can muck around with those if you like. Scrolling down, we've got a lot of show something, and we've got chat box, kill feed, death, so on, so on. I have deaths turned on and streak turned on, and that's really important. As you can see in the top left hand corner, tells me how many times I've died and what kill streak I'm on. So if I'm close to a nuke, I'll be able to go and tell. Another thing to go and turn on is show ping, so you can go and see your connection to the server, and also show FPS, so how many frames you're getting in game, how smooth your gameplay is, and see if you are lagging. Now, another thing to go and talk about is show movement speed. Now, this is by default off, and you can go and see why. It's this really weird, text that shows how fast you're moving in game. I personally don't like it. I don't have it turned on. Some people might like it, but that is what it looks like. Show medals, go and just have those on. Name tag display, by default, everyone and everything, and you're good for that section. Now, the next section is really important, your crosshair. Basically, where you're gonna be going and pointing your gun. Now, as you can see, I have a really nice small crosshair that's just in the middle of my screen. It doesn't go and move, it doesn't go and distract me, and it's pinpoint accurate. Now, this crosshair I will go and provide in the description below. What you need to do is copy that link and paste it into this section and make sure to go and have image on. So if you have you just put it on default, by the way, which is probably what majority of you guys will have. As you can see, it goes in and out, and I find it a little bit distracting. I personally don't like it that much anymore. But if I go to image, it's just really nice in the middle of my screen. Doesn't go and distract me. It's a really cool thing to do. So copy that link, paste it in, and you won't regret it. Now, the next thing to go and talk about is this always show setting, and this means always show your crosshair. So as you can see, I currently have it on, and if I go and scope in, with my sniper, my crosshair is showing. I go and scope in with my deagle, the crosshair is showing. Now, with that said, this is pretty important since my Desert Eagle disappears and all my weapons disappear when I zoom in. Now, if you go to the settings right here and then turn off always show, and then I'll turn off the other setting as well just to show you. If I go in with my sniper, the crosshair disappears. If I go with my deagle, crosshair disappears. So this is a setting that by default you guys would have, off. But with that said, I like having my crosshair in the middle of my screen. I think it is a really cool thing indeed. So that's just my personal preference. So we'll go and turn that back on. Now, under gameplay, there is a ton to go and talk about. This is my personal sensitivity, aim sensitivity, and all of that. This will not automatically make you a better player, so go and experiment. I just like it basically at 1.1. That's what I personally like it at, so go and experiment. Now, for field of view, this is up to a bit of personal preference, but also what will make you a better player. Now, by default, as you can see, I have it on 110, and this goes and opens up my screen quite a lot. I can see people coming from my left and my right and so on. By default, I believe it's at 70, and look at the difference. Look how enclosed you are. Look how little you're looking at the map. Overall, you're just going to be limiting your gameplay, and you won't be getting as many kills because someone could just sneak up from your right or left hand side. Some people like having field of view all the way up to 120. As you can see, you see a ton of the map, and this theoretically is the best competitive setting because you can go and see so much. But your enemies, a little bit tiny, they're a bit harder to hit just because of the way the map is. So with that said, go to your settings and change it to what you personally feel is good. I had it on 90 for a while. I think 90 is pretty good, but I went and buffed it up to 100. And 100 I think is the best middle ground setting between, having it too low and having it too high. 100 right bang in the middle, so that's what I suggest. Alright, so the next thing to talk about is lag compensation. Now, this is a setting I suggest keep on 1.0. Keep on that default setting unless you know what you're doing, if you've experimented around with it. But for the majority of people, 99.9% of people watching this video, keep it on 1.0. Now, scroll direction is basically what direction is your mouse scrolling in when you swap weapons. So if you have it enabled, so I'm scrolling down and I'm not swapping weapons, but I'm scrolling up and it's swapping between my UMP and my knife. So if I go back to settings here, then I turn that off. That means I can scroll down and that will go and have the same effect. So basically, what direction, up or down, do you want? So I have that turned on for myself. The streamer mode basically goes and swaps the lettering of people's names. So if they have like a swear word or something like that, it doesn't pop up on screen. I should probably have that turned on, given that people have bad names in my videos and I forget to edit them out. So I will go and keep that on. Now, challenge mode is something that people haven't really talked about. I should do a full video on challenge mode, but basically on challenge mode, you get more KR per kill. So that's really good. But you have half the amount of HP. So as you can see, I've got this UMP right now. If I turned on challenge mode, I would have 50 HP. So it's basically a extra hard difficulty level. And that is something, if you really want to challenge yourself, given the name is challenge mode, sure, but for the majority of people, I would keep it off. Now, invert y-axis, if you go and turn that on and you pull up on your mouse, basically it'll go down, you pull down, it'll go up. So it reverses it. It's basically like flight simulator controls. I just go and turn that off. I personally don't like it. Sound, I have it on 0.2, I like it a little bit lower. And voice volume, I have it on 0 because I don't want to go and hear people in game. So that's basically those sections complete. Now, the next setting here is weapon bobbing, and I currently have it on 0.6. So as you can see, my gun goes and bobs a little bit when I go and slide hop, but it isn't too distracting. Some people have it on 0. When it's on 0, as you can see, the gun just literally doesn't move. I don't like that. It just feels a little bit, a bit staticky. It doesn't look too cool, but some people also have it on like the max setting possible. And as you can see, the gun's just going everywhere. This is absolutely crazy. But it does look actually really cool. I've seen some people on Instagram and Twitter with this setting. It looks pretty sweet if done right. Personally, I like it on 0.6. Go and experiment with it. The next setting right here is weapon leaning. So by default, your gun, it just stays right here. It'll go and bob up and down where you jump, but it stays pretty much in, a fixed-ish position. But if you go to weapon leaning, let's put it on max for demonstration purposes. You go to the left, see how the tip of the barrel is moving where my crosshair is moving. And this is a really good example. If you go and swing your mouse left and right, the gun kind of follows. I find it super distracting and I really don't like it, but some of you guys out there might go and like it. So I currently have it turned off, but maybe at, the 1.0 setting, it might be cool, but that's up for you to go and decide. Now, this setting right here, X, Y, and Z offset, is really important because by default, this is what your gun is. This is what your gun is, right in the middle of your screen. And I personally find it super distracting. The gun is taking up the space where basically enemies will be, and I don't want my gun to be blocking the view. But also, I don't want my gun to be just disabled because I like looking at my skins and stuff like that. So what I suggest to go and do is muck around with X, Y, and Z offset. So X is horizontal, left or right. Where do you want your gun to be? So if you put it on 0, as you can see, right smack bang in the middle of your screen. If you put it all the way to 2, it's on the right hand side of your screen, and that takes up a little bit more space. A little bit less space, sorry. I personally like it on 1.4, I believe, actually. 1.4 is where I like it. It's just a little bit to the right, and, it takes a little bit less room. But also, the gun is a little bit high. I don't like it when the gun's really high. So that's why I put it on 1.3. It lowers the gun a little bit. And as you can see, the gun's still really visible, but also it doesn't take up too much of my screen, which is a cool thing. And for Z offset, I believe I have it on 1.1, and that goes and moves it out a little bit, which is a pretty cool feature as well. So that is my settings for X, Y, and Z offset. And compared to what we just saw before to now, looks like night and day. My gun's a little bit smaller, takes up less of my screen, overall better to look at. Now this setting right here, hide weapon on ADS, is what we went and customized before. So we turned it off before, we're going to be turning it back on now. So if we go in game, we go with a deagle, as you can see, aim down sight, my gun disappears and my crosshair goes and stays because I've just kept it crosshair on as always, which is really, really good. So as you can see, someone down here, I have nothing distracting me, I can line up the headshot, easy kills. So I find this really important because it means there's no distractions with the gun whatsoever. Talking about distractions and guns and so on, show primary, secondary, melee. I like having all my guns on because I like looking at my skins. I just don't like looking at them when I'm aiming down sight. So that's just for personal preference. Scrolling down to the editing section right here, we've got a ton of stuff to go and talk about. Pop-up score, color, shadows, scale, XY offset, all that. Pretty much default. I haven't gone and changed these X, Y, X, and Y offsets. Basically, when you go and get a kill, when it pops up like plus 150 and whatnot, I haven't changed that. I changed the scale to make it a little bit smaller, but haven't gone and changed all that much. Saturation in-game and saturation UI, really, really important to go and talk about. So as you can see, I have it on 1.8, and by default, it's 1.0. Have a look at how grey the game looks. It looks terrible, boys. When you play on a high saturation, everything just looks so bright and lovely, and I suggest everyone go and ramp it up to maybe like 1.8, around 1.5 to the 2 region. Your game just looks so much better and so much brighter. If you go to 3 right here, the game looks just way too bright. The colors are really, really out there. But if you go to, let's say, 1.8 here, 1.8, good game, look, the game looks absolutely beautiful. It looks bright, it looks lovely, it looks inviting. You know, just a setting that, you know, you should really go and consider. This is really, really important to just overall how the game goes and looks. Alright, so color hue, as you can see, changes the colors of your game. UI goes and changes the colors of your UI. I personally wouldn't change it. Don't worry about this or this. Green screen is a cool option if you're a video maker. As you can see, everything just turns green and you can go and take a screenshot, chroma key out your weapon, and it's cool if you want to make, you know, thumbnails and stuff like that. So that's personally what I do, make my thumbnails. And that is the bulk of the editing settings, but we still got a little bit more to go and talk about. So customization here, load mods, I have no mods installed, so I turn that off. Same with auto load mod, but obviously if you want to run mods in game, you have to go and turn that on. Now these ones right here, really important. It's what people keep asking me again and again and again. UCD, what's your scope, what's your red dot, so on so on. Now with my scope, I'm running a custom scope, so you by default will be seeing something like this. So as you can see, I go and zoom in, it's got this black rim around my scope, and that can be really cool if you just want to focus in on your enemy. But personally, I want to see if someone's coming to my left, coming to my right, so I run a custom scope. Now what you need to do if you want this scope, link will be in the description below. Go and copy that, paste that in, and what you can go and do is you post that in, you go in game, and you'll see this, and you're like, UCD, what I do wrong? Well, what you didn't go and do was disable scope borders. If you're putting in a custom scope, disable this. Make sure to go and disable it. As you can see, scope's looking beautiful. I can see people coming to my left from this hallway, people coming from my right. Really important if you want to go and have an advantage is to use a custom scope with scope borders turned off. Now, red dot. This is something people keep asking me about. UCD, you don't have a red dot on your AK, you don't have a red dot on your SMG. How do you go and do that? So let me go and show you right now. Alright, so we've hopped into Sub-Zero right here. I've got my AK-47, I scope in, and all I see is my crosshair. No gun, no nothing besides my crosshair. And that is how I like it. I just like seeing the crosshair so I can aim on an opponent's head and just go spray right at it. No distractions whatsoever. Now, if we go to the settings section, what we're talking about before was that red dot. And why don't I have it? Basically, I have got this little picture right here, which is just a transparent pixel, and it goes and removes the red dot, and I'll put the link to that in the description below as well. So if I go back in, as you can see, red dot, but it's right in the middle of my screen. It's distracting. I want to put that right on my opponent's head. So what I do, go here, red dot, bang, no more red dot anymore. It looks absolutely perfect. We scroll down a little bit, match end message, you use code UCD in the Crunkashot for Big Peen. That's just what I have. You can do whatever you like. And profile image. So as you can see in the top left hand corner, and we go in game, bottom left hand corner is just my little profile picture. So my game looks basically how, you know, it has a little bit of customization, a little bit of personality to it. But going back to the settings, I haven't gone and changed any of this. Def icon, streak icon, I've just left it all basic, but I might be customizing that a little bit later on in the future. So tell me if you want a video on that. Tell me in the comment section below. Last thing to go and talk about though, performance. As you can go and see, it says unlimited FPS, and I have that on. This is a client only feature. If you're playing on the browser, you won't go and have this. Now, if you're playing on the browser, you will be locked to the refresh rate of your monitors. So for the majority of people watching this video, that will be 60 frames per second. You'll be locked at 60. I am at 400 because I have unlimited FPS on. This is really, really important. If you want the best experience possible, you want the highest FPS possible, which means you can slide hop better, make sure to go and play on client and make sure to have unlimited FPS on. Now when it comes to streaming, window capture, don't worry about that. That's basically if you want to go and record your game using OBS, there is a window caption feature, but I just use display capture to be perfectly honest myself. And boys, that is basically my settings for Krunker.io. Pretty straightforward, a few customizations, but nothing too crazy. Overall, I get to see a lot, and see if I'm coming around here, boom, put a few bullets in that opponent's head, bang, I slide hop around here, slide hop into the middle section, come around here, bang, bang, bang. Overall, really simple, really clean, makes me focus on the gameplay, but the game looks really nice as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and Sydney literally is dropping an update literally as I just finished this video, so lucky me that I got it done right now. If you enjoyed it, make sure to go and smash that like button and subscribe for more Krunker.io videos. Bye for now, it's Undercover Dudes, all the way from Down Under, out.